Are you an investigative professional? Have you heard about the investigator's.Toolbox.com? Check out this exclusive online community for networking, learning, and data resource management. The Toolbox is a one-stop shop for all your investigative needs. Check out our robust collection of forums, our comprehensive learning page, and our expansive library of OSINT research tools. We've just released an app for both iOS and Android, so you can access the site seamlessly right off your phone. We have also partnered with some amazing companies like Crosstracks, Delphoint, IRB, Scope Now, the Hetherington Group, PI Magazine, PI Gear, Merlin Locate Services, Parabin, the PI Institute of Education, and so many more. They're offering over $1,250 worth of discounts and benefits exclusively to community members today. Use code PIP201836 and save 10% on your membership. That's www.investigators-toolbox.com.
Need some investigative work done in New York? Look no further than Satellite Investigations. With over 24 years of investigative experience, Matt and his team offer the best service out there. There's a reason why Satellite Investigations is known as the #1 personal injury investigative firm in New York. So visit satellitepi.com to learn more.
PI Perspectives.
Welcome to PI Perspectives. Today we have an awesome episode as we welcome Alex Skip Guru Price. The Guru has over 35 years experience, and just for the record, he doesn't call himself the Guru. People gave him that name for a good reason. The Guru has over 35 years experience in doing skip tracing. He's now semi-retired and offers instruction on how to succeed in this space. He's also an education consultant for Locate Smarter, a new database option for skip tracing. So let's join the Guru from Guru Manor and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Well, today we've got a guru in the house. We've got Alex Price. Alex and I connected online on Facebook, actually. I'd always heard the name Alex Price. I've seen things all over the place, but I've never actually talked to Alex till I got an invite to join his Facebook group, and we connected from there. So, Alex, I want to welcome you to the program. How you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Okay, Skip Guru. How did you get the Guru moniker?
Well, so everybody out there does not think I'm an egomaniac. I did not give that nickname to myself.
Right.
I've been public speaking for many, many years, trade shows, on site at clients' locations, etc. And there was a trade show that was very popular back several years ago that a company by the name of AutoStar, which was basically a CRM for the automobile buy here, pay here world. So they held a big users conference every year at the Worthington in Fort Worth. They had asked me to speak at it, and the gentleman who basically ran AutoStar, his name was Antonio Rajan, and Antonio was from England. And when he got up to introduce me, he said, I'm very excited about today. Skip tracing is a big topic, blah, blah, blah. And today we have the Skip Guru. And it stuck.
Right.
And I have people, my name is Alex Price, but I have people that email and on the phone call me Skip all the time. It really stuck. It actually became part of who I am. And
right.
Several years after that, I love to write. I've written 3 books, and I used to write for a lot of different publications, and I read a book by Michael Hyatt called Platform, which changed how I do everything to this day. Right. So I started my own blogs, and I was trying to come up with a name for it.
Okay.
And my wife, as I had come up with all these different names, my wife kind of looked over at me and she said, you should use what that guy called you at that trade show a couple of years ago. I said, Skip Guru. She said, that's it. She said, use it. And it's now become a brand and a nickname. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I love in the Facebook how you have it as the tribe, right? You address the members as the tribe, because we are a bunch that comes from all different walks. There are different aspects to why you would want to do skip tracing, and all walks of life. And it's your group is over 2,000 members. I think you 2,400 if I'm correct,
Right
right?
at 2,500. Yeah.
25 now. Wow. Okay, that's
I got the name Skip Guru's Tribe. I stole Tribe from a book by Seth Godin called Tribes.
mhm.
And in the book, he um, basically said that if you have 1,000 members of a tribe, you can always make a living. And he brought up the Grateful Dead,
Right.
that they never really had an album that broke top 10,
Touch of
etc.
Grey, yeah, was like their biggest hit, and that song is yeah. If you ask a big Deadhead fan what they think about Touch of Grey, and they get very angry at you.
But their fan base was so fanatical that people would quit jobs and take an entire
No, I know.
follow them.
So the guy who I graduated high school with, who was valedictorian, basically took a year off to follow the Dead. It was something that was very popular in the early 90s, like my age group. Hey, go follow the Dead, go do it. I'm not a huge Grateful Dead fan, never really was. Like I respect the music, like some of the songs. The songwriting's amazing. I think the stuff that John Mayer did post Jerry Garcia was pretty amazing with them too. But I think that's a different podcast show for a different day.
That's where I got the Tribe, and it's ironic that it's a private group, invitation only.
Yeah.
But during all the COVID stuff, Facebook just got so harsh.
Yeah.
Worse than I've ever seen it. And I got tired of it.
Yeah, it's true.
And I was like, I'm going to, I see all these groups. I'm going to create my own group. We just talk about skip tracing, no memes, no political talk, no nothing. Anti-bullying, the whole 9 yards, no arguing, content driven only. And I actually expected maybe 50 people to be in there.
Yeah.
And it really bloomed, and it's been very fun to do.
And I got to be honest, man, it is really no BS in that group. Like there really isn't any of that stuff. I think folks really respect one another, and I appreciate it. I got to give a shout out to Michelle Harris in Pennsylvania. She actually she gave me the invite, so shout out to Michelle at Harris Investigations.
Yeah, Michelle's a good lady. I like her quite a bit.
Oh, we go way back, Michelle.
Yeah.
She's the DMV queen for me. Getting out of state, it's like she knows exactly what you need, and it's easy to get that info from my clients, to make it go as smoothly as possible.
She's good people, and skip tracers can be a very weird lot.
That's what I said, man. There's all different types from different areas.
And she's pretty normal, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's all good. So I mean, what is your background? Like, how long have you actually been doing skip tracing, and what led you to feel the need to get into this arena?
Over 35 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all I've ever done. Just skip tracing. Most people today, they do skip tracing as a function that's part of their job, but they don't do just it and it alone.
Right.
And for me, it's everything. It's what I do. It's what I study. It's what I read. It's all encompassing. It's like a second wife.
Yeah.
And
don't tell your wife that.
She'll tell you that. Back in the mid 80s, I had just gotten out of the Army, and I was I've been in martial arts my whole life, but in the Army, I got involved in powerlifting pretty deep. And when I got back from the Army, there wasn't many jobs for what I was trained for.
Mm-hmm.
So I was bouncing and training, and that was it. And I met a young lady who I thought was special, which I was right, because This May, we'll be married 37 years.
Oh, congrats.
My dad, who was an automobile dealer, said, you know, if you're going to be serious about this girl, you need to get civilized. And he got me a job at the local bank. Barnett Bank was the largest bank in Florida back then.
Yep.
So I was a field rep, and they don't have them anymore for liability purposes. But my job basically consisted on knocking on doors and asking people for their payment or their keys. And I was off.
Yeah.
After that, I was offered a position with a very little known company in the US at the time. And again, Dad's advice said I should take the job because the company was going to go place and had a bunch of money behind it.
Right.
That company was called Toyota. I was one of
I've
the
never heard of them.
Yeah, I was one of the first 50, 75 people Jim Moran ever hired for what was Southeast Toyota, World Omni, and now it's back being called Southeast Toyota again.
Mhm.
And I ran their skip charge-off division in special collections for about a decade and left. And by the grace of God, you got time to hear this part?
It's up to you, man.
Right.
I asked you your background. You go.
By the grace of God, I started my own company, and a couple of months before I started my own company, I was asked by a dear friend of mine named Rusty Ansell in California to speak at the Time Finance Adjusters annual trade show, and they were a national association. They've since merged with another one.
Right.
And I asked him, I said, well, he said, Harvey Altez wants you to speak. And I said, okay, well, what's Time Finance Adjusters and who's Harvey Altez? And he explained to me, and he said, it's in Orlando. Come on up for speaking. We'll book the room. I was like, cool, trip to Orlando. Bring the wife. And after I spoke, I got a phone call in the room to come downstairs, and there's four men that I consider the four horsemen of the auto recovery space, and that's Harvey Altez, Rusty Ansell, a gentleman named Millard Land, and Ron Brown. And we were sitting at the Embassy Suites Hotel around a hot tub, and we were talking, and Harvey said, kid, to the day he passed, he called me kid, 58, almost 59 years old, and he called me kid a couple weeks before he passed. But he said, you're too sharp to work for somebody else. You should start your own company.
Right.
I said, well, that's the dream, but my wife has diabetes and you can't find insurance unless you're with a big company. He goes, I can help you with that. I'll make you the first skip tracer ever in our directory. And then Millard stepped up and offered something. Ron did, Rusty did. And I went up to the room, talked to Paige and my wife. And that next Monday I quit and started Renegade Research.
That's awesome.
And those four guys, one of them called me at the end of each day to see how the day went. How many accounts did you get in? How many customers did you solicit? How much money came in today? What'd you do with it? And for 35 plus years now, with the exception of Harvey, who unfortunately passed away, those three guys became my mentors in business and life.
Yeah. So, sometimes it takes a little somebody just to push you a little bit. For me, it was my spouse, right? So she, the situation I was in, I was working for an attorney, and she's like, you can't work for this guy forever. And then who's going to hire you after he's not practicing law anymore, unless you're a lawyer? You think every law firm has an in-house investigator? Like, let's get real here. And it was that push of like, I want to start a business. I just don't know where to begin. And then, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you read that, you learn how, and you write a business plan, and I'm the same story. By the grace of God, somebody like gave me money to start a business, and it was right before a big financial crash. So the timing was perfect. Really so many things had to be right for it to work. And that's great. That's inspiring, having those people in your life that push you to do those things and believe in you and what you're doing is that's half the battle right there. Just getting your foot in the door and getting started on something. So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I want to jump in to the topic today, because we really want to dive into the skip tracing, and you've got your three types of skips that we're going to cover. And I want to get into that and some other cool stuff. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back. I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of ScopeNow, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great, great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that ScopeNow is a part of that suite. Scopenow.com.
Are you a member of NCISS? Do you know what this great organization does? The National Council of Investigation and Security Services was formed in 1975 to keep a watchful eye on legislation that affects our industry. Now more than ever, there are data privacy and DMV issues popping up all over the country. Consider joining and supporting this much-needed watchdog for our industry. Learn more at nciss.org. Have you heard about the Natalie Conference on June 23rd through June 25th? Natalie heads to San Antonio, Texas for the premier live conference event of the year. You don't want to miss this great opportunity. Visit Natalie.com to learn more, and Matt will be featuring some of the speakers over the next few weeks.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we are talking to the Skip Guru, not Skip. His name is Alex Price. Alex, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much again. Yeah, please, Alex Price.
Yes, I am really excited to have you here today, because you really, when you talk about thought leaders in our industry and folks that really know their space, you're definitely a resource that has been around, and you walk the walk and talk the talk, and you deliver on this stuff. So let's dive right into talking about skipping today. And you have three principles you wanted to talk about, the types of skips. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first, let me say I'm humbled by the kind words, especially coming from somebody of your caliber in the investigative world. So thank you. Many, many years ago, I came up with a couple principles on basically how I worked every file. And I think every skip tracer kind of has their own, pattern or vibe, so forth. And I came up with mine. And since I'm no longer active in the industry and I travel the country and teach skip tracing, it's not as secretive anymore. So I share with this new generation coming up as much as possible. And the theory is that every skip I ever worked, I was able to put in one of three buckets. And once I figured out what type of skip that person was, it basically gave me a direction to take the file on what to do first and why, so I didn't waste time or resources.
Right.
Because when you're skipping a file, it's like any investigation, the more time that you have invested in that file, the less money you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
In the skip tracing world, it's always contingent. You don't get paid unless you find the subject, and you're always on a pretty much a flat fee. You get paid $500 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to find the guy as quick as you could. So the three types of skips, the first one is what I call an out-of-pocket skip. And before I name the first two types, I must say one of the biggest mistakes that I see in today's skip tracers is they worry so much about where's the subject at.
Right.
Is they forget probably the most important thing to ask before you start out, and that's why. The only reason why anybody skips out on any contractual obligation, it doesn't matter what industry you're talking about, is they've normally hit a speed bump in life, and those speed bumps are never positive.
Right.
As we know from the fight or flight study, everybody's going to react in a similar fashion under any particular stressor.
Right.
So the out-of-pocket skip was probably the most common. 30% of all the skips I ever worked were considered an out-of-pocket. I considered an out-of-pocket skip, and that just means that person is relocated to a different area for, in their mind, which is key, a valid reason.
Right. Better opportunity. Yep.
Right. They have a loss of employment, a divorce, a breakup, get away from a bad situation, etc. They perfectly plan on taking care of whatever their obligation is once they get settled in the new spot and get a couple of paychecks together. They're usually the person that is shocked somebody was even looking for them.
Mm-hmm.
So with the out-of-pocket skip, some of the easiest ways to gather intel on that individual, because remember, skip tracing is following a breadcrumb trail.
Yep. Pulling on a thread.
Pardon me?
Pulling on a thread, right?
Exactly.
So thread, pull on it and you keep working it.
Neighbors, ex-coworkers, those people can usually give you the why
Mm-hmm.
with an out-of-pocket skip. And then you take that why and you start adding in the magic 3, which I'll cover in a second. And that starts allowing you to gather more breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. The second type of skip is, of course, the intentional skip. They know what they're doing.
Okay.
They've been arrested before, they've been bailed out, they've been in collections, they've been repossessed. Maybe they were repossessed with Toyota 4 months ago, and now, because credit really doesn't matter, it's all risk-based. Right. You've got great credit, you get a low interest rate. You got bad credit, doesn't mean you can't get a car or a loan. It just means you're going to pay 10 times the interest rate.
Exactly.
So
yep.
He knows the game. With the intentional skip, you have to find the why more than anything, because the why probably broke or burnt down the bridges of those people in his immediate circle, and he's got a new group of people, and you got to find them to find him. And that's another mistake that a lot of skip tracers make. If I'm looking for you, I'm not going to look I'm not going to spend a lot of time digging too much into you. I want to find that satellite of people around you because they will lead me to you. You're a skip, so you got to work smart. And today's uh, skips are far more smarter than they were 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's a challenge. I mean, I'm like, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of that the HBO documentary on the lady who had the cars in California. It's the lady in the Dell or Duff. I can't remember the name of this. There was a car. It was like a almost like a plastic car. Like it was bizarre. But she basically she was originally born a man, and she transitioned into a woman. So the idea of like skipping and trying to find out who this person was, who was a career criminal, the Dell, I think it was called, Lady in the Dell, something like that. And her journey of the transition and being a career criminal and then creating a whole nother life, like thinking about like, how do you go back and trace that? And this person did have a community of people that were protecting her as well, which was really, really bizarre. And I know I probably botched the name of the episode, so I'll probably get an email from somebody like, "No, dummy, it was this." But yeah, whatever.
okay.
It's interesting though; it really is. Yeah.
If you remember the name of that documentary, please email it to me because I'm a avid reader and documentary junkie.
Yeah. No, this was a good one. It's such a bizarre circumstance, and you want to talk about somebody on the run. You know, the whole a classic skip. You know, and then just changing their identity because of life and things that have happened, but ultimately did end up getting caught, which was pretty amazing. So yeah, it's interesting. I feel like lots of folks that get into this industry start out through banking or vehicle companies or things like that do this type of work. I can recall at least 3 or 4 people I've interviewed in the past the same way, that they started out doing that. Rod Gagnon is from Colorado is one that comes to mind, and Charles Eric Gordon is another one who ended up becoming an attorney actually, but he started off back in the 70s, working for a bank, locating people. It's just really, really fascinating, especially back then with technology, right? We don't have all the bells and whistles and the things that we have today. So being around in the time that you've been around, tell me a little bit about the changes that you've seen over the years and how that's affected your business model and how you do things.
Wow. Well, when I first started out way back when at the bank didn't even have computers.
Yeah.
If you wanted to verify that somebody paid, you had to get that customer to have the teller call you and say, Jonathan P. Consumer's here making his payment. Great. How much? Cool. Because everything was on paper collection assignments. And if you made a note of a new phone number or someone that could always contact the customer, you wrote that down and you saved that collection assignment in your drawer. If it wasn't, if you didn't need it anymore, you dropped it in the shred basket.
Right.
So we had no computer. We had the old wrestler's crisscross book that you needed a dolly to tote them around the room, and you actually had to get in your car and drive to the courthouse if you wanted something, wait in line, like use microfiche, pay a penny a page to print stuff. If it was outside of your area, you had to make a friend. That's where networking was so important. And somebody told me many years ago, and I still think it's true today, that a skip tracer is only as good as his Rolodex, and I still believe that.
I think PI is the same way. You got to have those soft skills. Anybody can do research, but that interaction of understanding kids' gloves and the psychology of how to talk to people, that is a skill. Either you have it or you don't have it. And I've seen plenty of great investigators that don't have that drive to finish the race and get done what they need to get done because they lack the social skills to do it. It's a big part of what we do. And I'm going to solve my own answer here. It's Dale, Lady in the Dale. So,
Lady in the Dale. Okay.
It's a good
I'll
one.
look that up. I'll probably watch that tonight.
Yeah.
It's amazing you mentioned communication. When I travel all over the country, and up until COVID, I was doing close to 200 days a year on the road teaching.
Wow.
And COVID kind of ended all that with a new career path, which was pretty cool because at 58, 200 plus days a year was killing me.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know how, bands and so forth do it. Of course, they've got tour buses and they were traveling a lot more a luxury than I was, even though since I was a million mile member, I had all the perks of first class. It was still getting on a plane.
Yeah.
So communication is such a big key. When I teach classes, one of the first thing I say is, okay, if you're in here to figure out all kinds of and learn about all kinds of new apps and widgets and digits and pidgets, you're in the wrong room, because my specialty is taking tried and true true techniques, human behavior, and merging them with today's technology.
Right.
So we live in an era of 128 characters or less, and people, even adults, even friends of mine my age, they don't pick up the phone and call people anymore. They'll just text me real quick, hey, how you doing? I hadn't talked to you in a while. I'm like, well, then call me.
A phone, what's that?
Yeah.
You think people hold their iPhones and go, you mean these things actually have telephones built into them?
Exactly. So there's a big component of my teaching that's about communication and social engineering. And I told you, about the four horsemen, and it's funny, as you go down the path of life, you lose contact with some friends, you make new ones. Well, I've been very blessed to have the most perfect mentors at the most perfect time.
Yeah, it's a great.
And in the past 2 years, I became very good friends with Chase Hughes, Scott Rouse, Chris Hagnaghi, the social engineer, Greg Hartley, and Mark Bowman,
Right.
and the great Robin Dreek, who was the head of the I always say BAU, and those aren't the true initials. That's Criminal Minds, but he was the head of that division. And those guys over the past 2 years have taken me under their wing and become mentors in body language, verbal tells.
So important.
It's just been such an amazing ride.
Super interesting technology, or techniques. It's not even just technology. Like they're if you study this stuff. I had John Pizzurro on, and Gabrielle Salfati, both experts on the psychology of understanding why people do things they do. And it's just super fascinating. I got to wonder what it's like having, putting together the skip guru and the social engineer in the same room. I feel like it's getting the gatekeeper and the keymaster together, and no good could come from that.
Well, Chris Hagnaghi, for one, just, his kindness always humbles me. And I work a lot with the nonprofit that he founded called the Innocent Lives Foundation, which is a foundation that is basically a big group of social engineers that tracks and helps law enforcement apprehend and convict child predators.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I've learned from those guys over the past couple of years that I could just instantly, just snap of a finger, apply to skip tracing, just turned everything I always thought about skip tracing upside down on its head. So it's been the lockdown was for pretty cool, because I'm an avid reader, and I probably took during 2020 maybe 100 different classes.
Right.
I've
noticed that actually. You constantly posting. You're like McAfee's #1 customer, I think.
Yeah, well, Scott Rouse and Greg Hartley have a website called bodylanguagetactics.com.
Mm-hmm.
They've got 2 classes on there that are very they're literally like getting a college diploma just with those two classes. And then Chase used his stuff. I had to keep two monitors going, taking his last class, which took me 2 months to do because he gets so much into the brain and parts of the brain and how they work and so forth. Was I was constantly Googling the words he was using so I could follow along.
Right.
He's just that smart. So yeah, so we went from that to I remember the very first database I ever saw, which was invented by the great Hank Asher
Yep.
down in Boca Raton, called Database Technologies.
Sure.
And
Hank the programmer.
yeah,
That's who he was.
yeah, he was a genius. His biggest genius was matching logic.
Yeah.
And I tell you what amazes me from where we are now to where we used to be, not much has really changed. I do vividly remember getting my first beeper thinking I was James. And the first cell phone I got at Costco, which was like I now call the Gordon Gecko phone, I literally thought I was Sonny Crockett from Miami Vice.
There you go.
I used to walk around with it up to my ear, not talking to anybody, just because I knew I looked cool.
There you go.
Because back then they charged roam, and the minute you left your property, you were paying like $5 a minute for a phone call.
Yeah, I remember.
But if you think about it, all the data that was available to us back then at the courthouse and other avenues is what's available to us now. What's changed is we live in the information age, but better than that, we can have it now.
Yeah, it's called Python.
Yeah,
you know what a Python script is? You're able to get things so much easier.
Yeah, you can click on a mouse and gather information on somebody in 3 seconds that used to take us 2 months to gather. So
yeah, I mean, it's amazing the data sets that are out there. And what I appreciate about the data companies, folks like, I don't know, Scope Now, IDI, you name it, IRB, Del Point. These people are always in front of this stuff. They're looking for creative ways to get new data sets, and how can I implement that into what we're giving our clients. So people say sometimes like, oh, they're all the same. That is so far from the truth, because they source their data. They get their data sets are coming from different places. And you really need to use multiple sites. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, the PI Magazine podcast with Neil Cadell from IDI, talking about that, and, talking about how you got to use, they say 2, I say 3. I think you need to use at least 3 search engines, and OSINT on top of that. What's your take on that?
I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit.
Okay. That's good. You're the guru. Set me straight.
Data is data.
Okay.
And if you take IRB, Del Point, Accurate, for the most part, and you poured them into a glass, you'd be pouring Coke, Coke, and Coke.
Okay.
And I'm just talking about the data.
No, this is good. This is good. Let's talk about this. Get it up.
And the reason why is there's only 3 places to get credit header data from.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 2 places to get DMV data from. There's only a couple places to get property data from. So the data in itself is basically the same across the board. What is key, and when I usually laugh when I hear people say this one's better than that one, because what they're really saying is they like their website better, the font's better, the layout.
Right. The dashboard is easier to navigate around. That is definitely an aspect to it. I agree with.
They can digest the data quicker.
Yep.
So to me, the key thing about any data set is the matching logic, and how loose or how strict it is or fuzzy it is.
Sure.
And a great example of that, whenever I look at a database, one of the first things I do is I check my relatives. And I won't mention any names, but the last trade show I was at, there was a particular data vendor, and I never wear my name badge. It drives some of the associations crazy that I'm on the board of and I've worked with for years, because I figure if you don't know me by now, I've done a bad job.
Right.
And one, I like to talk to vendors without them seeing that Skip Guru moniker. So I'm walking around and someone says, "Hey, do you use such and such?" I said, "Nah." Them not realizing I'm, kind of retired from active skip tracing now. I teach it. He said, "You will." And I said, "I doubt it." And he said, "What?" He said, "Come here." And I said, "Well, pull me up." And the second he did it, had 132 relatives for me.
Yeah.
Here's what's strange about that. I'm an only child and I'm an only grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, my dad, my grandmother, my grandfather, uncles, etc., have all passed. My mom and dad in the past couple of years, unfortunately. So I didn't know over 100 people, never heard of them,
Right.
that were listed as relatives because the matching logic was very fuzzy.
Yeah. I mean, look at your name. It's a common name. So I can see
Yeah,
that.
so then another base, when I had them pull me up again, they had 3 relatives. They had my mom, who's deceased. The deceased flag was there. They had my wife. They had my son. That is drilled down scalpel matching logic. And there's kind of a little bit of both, a happy medium, which is why I do very much agree with you that you should always have 2 databases, because another thing that there can be a difference in is one database uses Experian, one database uses TransUnion.
Right.
And back in the day, that was a huge deal because very few creditors had the money to report to all 3 bureaus.
Right.
They reported to the bureau whoever had the lion's share of the marketplace in their region.
It made sense. Yep.
And, it was only the big companies, the car companies, the credit card companies that reported to all 3, which is the only reason why mortgage companies pulled a tri-bureau. Because as you went to each bureau, it changed. Well, it's pretty much not the same anymore. Pretty much everybody reports to all 3, but there is a little bit of difference. You've got a small jewelry store in your hometown. He's still reporting to 1 bureau.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, data has become a commodity where quality has fallen by the wayside and people just look for price.
Right.
And that me as a big data guy, that kind of saddens me, because I love working to build new data sets. I'm actually working on a few right now to change how people really look at DMV data completely.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting how you say that, because the price being a factor, like that's something as an investigator, like it frustrates me to hear that, because, we're turning that, where we should be turning that cost around onto our clients. Like nobody should ever say like, "Oh, that's too expensive," because at the end of the day, it's not coming out of my pocket if I'm billing it correctly. If I'm billing for my domain knowledge, my expertise, and I'm not just billing for the search that I'm doing, because let's face it, if we're doing this for a living and we've been doing it for a while, we have an expertise to it. There's more than just, you got to drill things down. There's more than just the numbers in front of you. There's always a bigger picture, right? And you need to be billing accordingly for that. So I get frustrated when I hear people like, I don't use that one because it's paying, costing me X amount of dollars per month and all that. It's like, you're turning that around, right? No, what are you doing? It's like super frustrating and crazy. Definitely.
Well, you're lucky in the private investigative field, and over 35 years, I've located everything from people to farm animals for every reason you can think of.
Sure.
To serve papers, to collect a body, to repo, property, you name it. And skip tracing, to a degree, over the last few years, especially on the auto side, has become a commodity itself.
Yeah.
When I sold my company and stopped active skip tracing and joined the world of data and so forth, I was getting $500 a skip back then.
Right.
There are people I talk to today. It's gone in reverse. They're charging $200. So that's where some of this stuff, the tail's wagging the dog in a lot of industries.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get what you pay for too. Also, if they're cutting corners, they may not be doing the thorough job, where, if somebody, at the end of the day, we all need to bill a certain amount by closing hours. Right. So who cares where that amount is coming from? If I have 2 cases I'm working on at 500 a piece, it's different than 4 cases at 250. The amount of time that you can put into doing the job properly, following the methodology. And I think that's what I appreciate about what you teach and how you do it, because it's not just, hey, this is, this is what you do here. It's more like, here's the methodology behind of how you do it and why you do it. And I think being able to identify those types of people you're looking for is genius. It really is. And that speaks of your experience, right? You've learned that through your domain knowledge, the expertise of being able to do that. That's amazing. Really cool stuff.
I couldn't agree with you more. I just wish more clients in the different industries felt the same way, because at the end of the day, if a skip tracer is doing some shoddy work and they're taking shortcuts, especially in some industries like bail enforcement and auto recovery, you can get somebody sued, or worse, you can get somebody killed.
Absolutely. And I think, like, as an investigator working with attorneys, and that's my space, that's what I do, right? So there's a fiduciary responsibility on my end to spend my resources to work a case up. I can't in good conscience say, I did a full skip on somebody and I was able to locate them by using one database and spending, I don't know, $5 on something. Did you really do the thorough job you're supposed to do? There's a fiduciary responsibility on our end to make sure we're doing that. Yes, you're going to, spend more of your resources to do it, but you should be billing those resources anyways. So, at the end of the day, you need to do this properly. And that, I think there's a shift starting where people are starting to get that and really understand, the proper way to do things.
I do too. And now you're another one. I'm just a dumb old skip tracer from Alabama. I'm going to have to look up the word fiduciary when we hang.
I'll email you.
I'm joking. I do know that word.
Yeah, you better. being in the industry you're in. That's great. We're going to wind down, but before we do, I want to touch on real quickly LPR technology and the skip and how that works together. Because you touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking before we started recording. I thought that was interesting. So tell me a little bit about LPR's license plate recognition and how does that work in the world of what you do? What are the advantages?
Well, one, LPR, or license plate recognition, a dear friend of mine, Todd Hodnett, started that whole space. And up until COVID last year, I was with DRN, Digital Recognition Network. Mm-hmm. And when COVID happened, that, the past decade, I've been on the road 200 days a year teaching. Well, I couldn't be on the road, and nobody wanted to teach because everybody went to their homes for the first time in fintech creation. People were working from home. I love LPR because if you look at skip tracing as following a breadcrumb trail, well, LPR skips all the breadcrumbs and just takes you straight to the factory.
Right.
Especially when you're looking for a car, and with their live hits, the camera just drove by the car 2 seconds ago. The car's there. Do you want it? Yeah, hook it, leave. So it changed the face of that industry, but most people use the LPR data incorrectly, in my opinion. When you look at the true power of LPR, the true power is in all the historic records, which is like 10 billion historic records of cars at locations. And most people go in and they just do a cursory, again, quick search, and yeah, this car was seen at a Walmart, but it was 3 months ago. It ain't there, and they move on, and they forget some basic human behavior. And I know statistically we all utilize this two same ATM machines week in, week out, one close to work, one close to home. We shop at the same two grocery stores. Again, one close to work, one close to home, and we eat at the same 3 to 8 restaurants, depending upon what our taste of the day is.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, if I see a LPR hit at a Walmart, I want to use Google Pro, not Google Maps. I like the one you download it to your desktop. It has far more features.
Mm-hmm.
I want to pull the map back 1 mile square radius and see what's in that 1 square mile radius, residential, commercial, and then I move from there, and I really drill down on it, because birds of a feather flock together. I'm an Alabama football fan. If I go to a pub to watch a game, I'm not going to one show in the Auburn game.
Yeah.
If I have a good experience somewhere, I'm going back.
Yeah.
People the same difference. And if a car is seen at a Planet Fitness on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, well, chances are that guy works out every night at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to be at that Planet Fitness at 6 o'clock. Now, the other thing where they make some mistakes with LPRs, I want to take public data, and before I drive 75 miles one way, even though I see the car, well, that just because the car's there doesn't mean the human's there.
Right.
So I want to use one of the most rarely used data set in skip tracing today, which to me is one of the best, and that's property records. I want to see who owns the property, how long they've been there.
Right.
That could give me a landlord that's going to always have information.
Right.
Maybe get a working phone at the address, get some neighbors, see who else is associated with the address. I want to get that data before I just jump in the car, all hyped up to go conclude the investigation, and I drive 150 miles round trip for nothing. So I teach using those other data sets along with it.
Yeah. Set yourself up for a win. Yeah. If you're going to make
especially
that
with the historical data.
Yeah.
With the live alerts that they have, I mean, that's what changed the industry.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I know things are constantly changing, and these guys are always being creative with how they're trying to do all this stuff. So I'm looking forward to probably the near future. There's going to be some new releases of some things, and I think we're going to wind down here, Alex. This was really great, man. I appreciate you coming on. And I feel like we could probably do a lot more here. we're gonna spare people and have you come back again. And
before we hang up, just I've mentioned public record data, and a quick plug. Back in September of last year, when I left DRN, my original plan was to open up a consulting company, because I had a number of companies that wanted to pay me a monthly fee to keep their staff trained and compliant, so forth. So I went on LinkedIn and I took DRN off and I put TBA, and overnight I had like 8 job offers, and one of them was from a friend of mine from years that's the president of a company called Locate Smarter.
Sure.
And I'd never heard of them, which really intrigued me. Well, they've been around for a number of years, but they never dealt in any of our worlds, and they only ever did batch processing and API. That's it. They built an online portal and never released it. And they asked me if I'd be interested in taking it over. So from mid-September of last year to first of this year, I was in the shadows working with their dev team. Mm-hmm. And these guys have that matching logic that I was talking about, that I pulled me up and there's just 3 people there.
Right.
I'm very impressed with their matching logic. So if anybody there would like any info on Locate Smarter or like to discuss skip tracing with me or go deeper with anything that we've discussed, they can reach out to me at alex.price@locatesmarter.com or go to Skip Guru's Tribe on Facebook.
Yep.
And with your permission, I'll give any of your listeners 7 days at no charge on the Locate Smarter platform.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And we're going to have the info in the show notes. So real quickly on how to get in touch with you guys. That's very generous of you, Alex. I appreciate that.
In order to get the 7 days free, they have to mention your podcast. That way I know they came from you.
Awesome. That's great. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat. This was really great. It was a long time coming. And I said it before and I'll say it again, man, I really do believe you're one of the thought leaders in the industry when it comes to this stuff. And I think it's important for us to share our knowledge and, not keep everything to ourselves. And you've definitely have made that pivot years ago, and you're passionate about not only training other people, but staying on top of continuing education, which if anyone follows you, they know that you're always training and doing something. So, all right, great. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
I will leave everybody with how I end any articles, podcast, anything. Everybody, make them better for having met you.
Yeah.
And be blessed, be safe, and happy hunting, everyone.
Yeah, there's nothing I can add to that. So we'll catch everyone next week. Take care.
Wrapping up a great show today, the Guru has so much insight, and he looks even cooler on video, so go to the YouTube page and check it out. Links in the description. Also be sure to look for him for his training programs and join his Facebook group. Matt loves interacting with that community. We also want to thank Scope Now, Satellite Investigations, and NCISS for sponsoring the show. Have you checked out Investigator's Toolbox app yet? It's the best way to manage your research and stay on top of your training. Everything you need is at your fingertips on your iPhone or Android. Visit your app store today and use code PIP201836 to save $20 when you join. If you have a question or comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com, and you can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. He'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next Monday with a new show. Make sure you tune in.